Right, when you look back at the film and watch the way Maya ran, does it make it a little easier to make sure to pace the way that Travion comes back and make sure that he's fully ready to go if you've got a guy like Maya?
Watching the film, he was our player of the game on offense. I thought he ran hard. A big part of it, obviously, we know is everybody else involved with it, but he ran really well. But no, I think at the end of the day, we leave all that stuff up to the medical staff here to make those decisions, and certainly we're anxious to get Trey back.
Do you feel like it could be this week for Travion?
Yeah.
We're going to go over here to the front row left, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you mentioned a few weeks ago that the injury that Jordan Hancock suffered during camp was a significant injury, and is he back to practicing full speed yet? And when do you expect him back?
Yeah, full speed, yes, but we're going to kind of look to see if we can get through the bye week, and then as we get to that game after the bye week, we're hoping to get him back in the game at that point. But it's still sort of week to week at this point.
Tommy has obviously locked down the middle linebacker job and has played well all year.
Yeah.
Does it seem like Steele is now doing that at the will?
I think so, based on his production in the last couple of games. But, it's week to week. But, I think based on the way he's playing right now, if he can keep that up, he's playing at a high level.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, when you guys signed Mayan, he wasn't as highly touted as some of the other running backs from a recruiting perspective that you guys have signed. What was it about Mayan that you saw that made you believe he could be this kind of player?
Yeah, Tony watched him run. Kevin Wilson actually saw him play live in a game, and we just felt like he just ran really hard. And like you said, maybe he wasn't as highly recruited, but we just felt like we saw something in a kid from Cincinnati who ran hard. Winwood's a very they have a great winning tradition. They're a great program. They produce really good football players. And, again, being from Ohio means a lot. And so, we wanted to always invest in Ohio guys. And so we certainly saw the talent in him, but it was mostly just the way that he was built, low to the ground, his vision, his power running the ball.
I was looking at stats for red zone on Saturday. I think you guys had 9 passing plays and 9 running plays inside the 10-yard line. Just curious, what goes into those decisions of when to pass, when to run in that area of the field?
It's a lot of work on Wednesdays. Wednesdays are very stressful from when we get in here to when we get on the field, just with everything going on with game planning, but making decisions on short yardage goal line, third down, in the red zone. And, there's sometimes very heated discussions in there because we know how important the red zone is, how important short yardage is, how important third down is. And so we talk it through, and then we put it on the field, try to make some corrections on Thursday, and then keep having those conversations all the way up until game time. Like, what do we think? Ball's on the left hash, 8-yard line, 1st and 10, second, whatever those things are. And then based on what's happening, we try to adapt the best we can. We had a lot of plays in our red zone this past week, so we had to kind of dig into a couple plays that maybe we hadn't practiced, in a week or so. But the guys executed them well and did a good job.
Fourth row middle, Andy Anders, BSB.
Yes, Ryan, I kind of wanted to get your perspective looking back on just how important C.J. Hicks's role as a pure recruiter was in that class.
Yeah, excellent. You always look for that Pied Piper in the recruiting class that can kind of show the way and lead the way. And we have a couple of those guys in the class right now, but he was. And you think back, Paris Johnson, Jack Sawyer, Kyle McCord. We've had different guys over the years who have done a great job of that. I think about how our receivers really helped recruit CJ, and so that was a big deal. But let's talk about C.J. Stroud. But C.J. Hicks in his class was excellent and did a great job.
And right in front of him, Tony Gertman, Buckeye Huddle.
Right, about Mayan. What you saw him on film, but what was it about him, meeting him, talking to him as a person, as a kid, that you liked him as a recruit?
He's an interesting person. He really has a way about him where he's very thoughtful. And at times can be understated a little bit, but then there's other times where he's in front of the group and telling jokes and laughing and being loud. So we've seen kind of different parts of his personality bloom here. I give Mayan a lot of credit. He's been through some different things over the last year or so, lost some people in his life, but he's continued to work through those adverse times. So to see him play like the way he's playing right now, going through everything he went through, and that's not something he typically puts out there, but he has been through a lot. And it's not easy for these guys when they go through different things, and I give him credit for that. And I know the guys around him and his friends have pulled for him and helped him through that.
How have you seen him grow or maybe shrink as a player from his high school days?
Yeah. I think just the overall awareness of what it takes to be a college football player. When he first got here, you could see in that first Clemson game, he could see the ability, you could see the feet, you could see the quickness and the vision. I think, when you make that transition from high school to college, you think you can bounce everything and outrun everybody. And he's really learned to make those ugly 3 and 4 yard gains, 5 and 6, and the big plays come. And I think his vision is really improved. I think his pass protection's improved. Just overall awareness of the game and football IQ.
Right behind him, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, Steele obviously did enough last year to work his way into a starting role and whatnot, but obviously another year in this as a linebacker. How have you seen him kind of become a real linebacker as opposed to a guy still transitioning?
Yeah, just playing more and understanding what it takes to be a linebacker. There's just different things, whether it's in protection or attack and protection on blitzes, whether it's in coverage, whether it's in the run game, whether it's out in space, in the box. There's just so many different things you have to do. You got to take on linemen. You got to go cover cover tight ends, running backs. You got to zone drop, read the quarterback's eyes. You got to read screen. There's just so many different job descriptions for a linebacker, and the more he's done them, the better he's been.
I know you guys have now done that with Chip as well, and you've talked about why that position can be one that can flip sides, but how difficult is it for a guy to, right before a season or in an off season to make that kind of transition?
I think it's a challenge, but I also think that both those guys played in high school, so it's not like they just started playing out of nowhere. But when you see guys who are very athletic, who have the ability to cover guys down the field, cover ground, speed, power, explosiveness, change of direction, those are the skills that you look for in a linebacker. And so, some guys want to really try running back first to see if that's what works for them, and a lot of them it does. But that's something that's happened over the years in football. It's pretty natural for linebackers to make the transition over to linebacker. But I do think, when you're talking about college football, it does take some time and takes a little bit of adjusting, which gives Steele credit and Chip. They're making that transition quickly.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Ryan, when you have a player like Jackson returning and you're sort of formulating your plan for the season, how much of your playbook are Jackson plays, like stuff you draw specifically for him?
A lot.
And I figured when you don't have access to that, does it force you to accentuate different things within the offense? And how has that process been so far?
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit it right on the head. And I think when we talk that, in here we always say, one of the strengths of college coaching is being able to adapt to what you have. And I think that's what you've seen here, and that had to kind of happen in game when we were in the Notre Dame game. It kind of caught us all off guard. And then we've had to do that here over the next couple of weeks. And looking forward to getting Jackson back and getting him going, and certainly brings a whole nother element to our entire offense. But I guess it's been a silver lining here is that we've had to, like you said, kind of go down the road of some different packages. And you can see that, those guys have embraced it. And, you got to credit our staff and our kids for really embracing it and putting it on the field, because it wasn't something that we spent a ton of time on the offseason, but some, but now it's on the field. It's one thing to practice, it's another thing to put it on the field and be successful. So we think that it gives us some versatility in our offense as well.
Have you, I guess, learned anything about your offense sort of along that journey in terms of things that maybe are strengths that you weren't anticipating coming into the year?
I just think certainly the tight end play between Cade, Mitch, G, those guys have been solid contributors for us, and then also just the young receivers. I think seeing the way that the offensive line has handled some of the run game and the way the running backs are running. I think when you add all that stuff together, you're seeing progress there. Again, know where we need to be, and as we continue to get challenged more and more, we'll see where the adjustments need to be made. But I think that's something that we've looked at here in the first 5 games and seen some progress.
And just one last thing, when you have a quarterback who is a Heisman Trophy candidate and you know how important cumulative stats are to that award, you're in a game that is clearly trending in your favor. Is any part of your decision-making calling plays, let me see if I can steal a touchdown for CJ here, rather than maybe calling things within whatever the flow of the game will be at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go down that road. Although you understand that is part of the world we live in right now. But I think what CJ would tell you is that all he wants to do is win. He's not looking for individual awards, and he was the happiest guy on Saturday. And there were a lot of holding calls. There was a lot of things that just happened, and he would look at you and say, "Well, we scored 7 touchdowns in our first 9 possessions." If someone said that to you, that's a pretty good day. And we're all looking around after the game, going, "Well, I guess we got to get better in these areas." It was a clunky day. It's like, whoa, we'll get a grip on things a little bit. And so I think he would tell you that. And we have to just take what the defense is giving us, and we have to look for that balance. And that's the most important thing. And all the other things will take care of itself in the end.
Over to the right, Don Taberry, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, first road trip of the season, what kind of concerns and how does it change for you guys?
Yeah, going on the road, tough place to play. Certainly a great stadium and great environment, and it's going to be hard to win up there. It always is, and this is the first time we're going on the road, so new challenge for us, new test, and it's been unique that we're into week 6 here and haven't played a game on a road. It's been great, but we got into a good rhythm. But now we got to go get our first conference road game.
You got these guys pretty good down here last year. It was a top 10 matchup and all that. What do you expect this time, and what do you see when you look at them?
The same thing. They've had a couple injuries here and there, but they're still very much the same team they were last year. A lot of those guys are back, so I know they've lost a couple games here, but we're expecting a top 10 team. We go up to East Lansing. Well coached, really good players. They had an excellent season last year, and those guys are still there. So it's going to be hard, just like it always is. And we know that we got our hands full this week. So we got to have a really good Tuesday and Wednesday practice to go on the road and go get this win.
Right behind Dom, the new kid on the block, Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
Hey, Coach Day, what challenges can Michigan State's defensive front present, especially with Jacoby Windham coming off the edge?
Yeah, they've done a good job last year, and they do a good job this year of trying to create chaos in the backfield. They've upgraded in certain areas with some new players in the front, and so just like any team we play in any conference game, we got to win a line of scrimmage, and that'll be important on both sides of the ball. But we know what they're capable of, and they're very talented.
And right behind, Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, you guys have had to win a lot of different ways on offense this season. Have you had a time in your career where you've had to kind of change your game plan this much? And how much do you think you've learned just from the first 5 games and having to do that?
We've learned a lot about our team, I think, and where we're going. But this is still just the beginning. We've got a long way to go. And I think, we all understand what needs to be done this season. And I think we have a better idea of what we have than we did 5 weeks ago, first going into that Notre Dame game. I think every year you learn more about your team. You learn more about, what you need to do to win. But it's not magic. It's fundamentals. It's taking care of the football. It's tackling well. It's winning the line of scrimmage. I say that every week, but it's true. I say to the guys, you might get bored of me saying it, but that's the discipline of bringing it every week, is you got to do the same thing every week. And sure, it gets old to hear, but it's the truth. And the great ones can do it every week and can bring it every week and don't get tired of the basics and the fundamentals.
You said on Saturday that it wasn't style points, but you guys won 49-10. How almost tiring does it get that Ohio State has to win 100-0 every week? And how hard is it to walk in a locker room and say, like you said, it's clunky, even though you guys just dominated a Big Ten opponent?
Yeah, well, I was walking into the Blackwell and someone grabbed me and just said, "Coach, good luck in the game today. 63-0, right?" I said, "Okay, okay. We're going to start off by trying to get the first down, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing, and I think it's the pride everybody has in our program. I think it's the hard work of so many people here that the expectations are so high, and that comes with the job, and that's a good thing. We look at it like it's a good thing, that people expect us to win at a certain level, and if we score 7 touchdowns in our first 9 possessions, and we're talking about how things were a little clunky, then that's a good thing, because we're holding ourselves to a very high standard, and I embrace that, and we embrace that. We love that, and that's what makes us good. Is we didn't come to Ohio State to be average. You want to be great, and so that's the way we take it.
Right across the aisle, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Paris Johnson obviously came into the season with a lot of expectations, a lot of hype, if you will. Seems like he's even exceeded that this year, the way he's playing so far. What are your thoughts on Paris?
Yeah, I think making the transition to tackle, he's done a good job. He's got some bigger challenges coming, but he's made some progress for sure. I think all the guys up front have. Again, as we continue to build throughout the season, we'll start to see more and more growth for all those guys. I think you're seeing that across the board with the guys up front. Still a lot to work on, though, but there's been bright spots. There's been flashes. There's been good play in the run game and in the pass game, but still a lot of things we want to continue to clean up. But you're right. I mean, for first time starting a tackle, there's been some good play.
Defensively, where you were at last year compared to where you're at this year, how does that affect your play calling or your decisions in a situation with the confidence you have in the defense to be able to get stops, whereas last year maybe those stops weren't coming?
Yeah, I mean, certainly early on, like in the Notre Dame game, it was huge, deciding to kind of push the ball inside the 10-yard line and play defense. I think that certainly in those really tight games are going to play into it big time because when you're getting those stops, then, yeah, you play the field position game, and that's okay. But, again, it's not something we're used to, but that's just the way it goes. And so that's smart football. And the minute you start getting away from that, then you start getting arrogant. You put yourself at risk big time, starting to think that, that doesn't matter. It certainly does. We got to play the field position game. We got to play great defense, and we got to take care of the football.
Right behind him, Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Right, when it comes to changing player positions, not specifically linebacker, but just in general, how's that conversation with some of those guys when it comes to moving a position?
Yeah, we don't really make the decision. We bring it up. Like, for instance, with Cade Stover, it was his decision. Steele Chambers, it was his decision. We tell them what we see, what we think. But in the end, if you're forcing someone to change positions, it doesn't work. They have to want to do it. They have to embrace it because it's really hard, and they're going to fail over and over and over again. And the only way to make it is to be able to sustain over time through those failures and be resilient. So that's my experience with it.
I feel like that's why those guys have had so much success because it's something that they wanted to do, not something you guys forced them to do.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to take Chip, for example, I mean, we recruited him like crazy as a linebacker here, and he wanted to play running back in college. And we said, okay, no problem. We love you. I mean, loved him. But he decided to go to Arizona State and then realized he wanted to play linebacker and came back. And now he's really embracing that role, and I think you're going to see his career take off.
Back wall, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Ryan, now that we're a little bit over a year into NIL, would you say it's a net positive or a net negative for the sport? And can you just dive into, in a world that's sort of lawless right now, how challenging it is to stay within lines that are almost invisible?
Yeah, I think it's such a it's not a black and white answer, positive or negative, because while the idea of it is definitely a positive, and there's a lot of people who are benefiting from that. Certainly, our players are benefiting from it, and it's excellent, and they deserve it. It's hard because there's a lot of hard feelings, because there's a lot of gray area in terms of what's allowed, what isn't allowed, inducement, those type of things. So until we wrap our minds around that and get some really concrete rules on how we want to move forward with this, on what is allowed and what isn't, college football is a multi-billion-dollar business, and when you don't have the guardrails in line, or for these types of things, then there's going to be hard feelings, and I think it's just important that we try to get our arms wrapped around that.
Beyond that, you're, I think, a third of the way through what you hope is the full season of 15 games. Have you guys started to see new leaders emerge in the program? And all offseason was about the leadership committees and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Who stepped up or that you've seen is elevated? You have three captains that really can't play, so I'm just
Yeah, I mean, I've really felt Ronnie Hickman out there big time. I think his leadership's been excellent. With the guys up front, I mean, you're seeing Luke. You're feeling Luke when he's out there. I think DeJuan Jones has been a pleasant surprise just in terms of his day-to-day positivity out there. Just feeling him out there. Certainly you guys know about Cade and CJ and those guys. At the receiver position, I think Emeka is an excellent leader. I think Julian's shown leadership. On defense, yeah, certainly Tommy is outstanding there. Zach Harrison's had a really good voice. Who else in the back end there? I'd say those are the guys that kind of jump. I'm going to forget somebody, but Xavier Johnson has been excellent. Really, just overall, his leadership's been tremendous. Certainly the captains have been great. But when you go on the road for your first road game, leadership is critically important. And so our leadership will be challenged this week.
Deep left, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now and Sports Illustrated.
Coach, just curious, as you've watched the last couple of games on film beyond stats, how do you evaluate the way CJ's played?
You just take it, play by play, and grade what you see on film. And there's been some really good things, and obviously some things that he's got to improve on. But that's everybody on the entire program. But there's been some really good play there.
As it relates to Michigan State, it seems like one area they really excel right now is actually in their punt game. Got the #1 punter in the country. I know they haven't turned those field possessions necessarily into wins, but how do you approach a week of preparation when you're going against a team that can flip the field the way they do?
Yeah, we have to. Well, we talked about it today in our staff meeting. What the objectives are in special teams, and that came up in the meeting. They do a great job in that area. So that's an area we got to win. We got to win the kicking game. It's part of our plan to win. And, part of it is going to be certainly, making sure that we're aware of all the fakes and different things that may come up in a game like this. Is, teams typically will try to steal possessions. That's part of the plan. A lot of times we see, so we have to be on edge there. But then we got to do a good job of trying to be aggressive and going after some punts. And at the same time, when it's time to return them, we got to do a good job of holding them up so that, when a punter, can really do a great job with punting the ball with hang time and down the field, you got to hold guys up in order to get a return. And we have good returners. So, we'd like to get some yards back on that area so that, we don't feel like we're going uphill all day.
Quick, Emeka, last week, it was an awfully windy day. When you evaluated the fumble, is that kind of how you saw that? The wind might have...
Yeah. That's not good when you turn the ball over, the first punt of the game. And, he's been reliable for us, and he'll continue to be reliable for us. But I know we wish he had that play back. Nobody wanted to make the play more than Emeka Egbuka. Nobody cares more than him. So, he'll take a look at it and try to figure out how maybe he could work on that a little better. We'll get some punts up there on windy days and keep working through it. But we have all the confidence in the world that he'll catch the ball when it's in the air.
Right in front of him, Mark Snyder, Press Bros.
Yeah, Coach, 5 straight games at home, and you've had a lot of people cheering for you. Now you're going to have people are going to tell how much they hate you.
Right.
And all teams being different than the Rose Bowl team and this team. What are you looking for from these guys? Because you go up there, you play the game, you come back down. That's like that could be pretty stressful for a young player, a young team. So, what are you looking for from this team?
Yeah, I think the first thing is composure and focus when you go on the road. You have to do a great job with leadership. The older guys who have been through this before have got to lead the way because, like you said, if you haven't been through that before, it's hard to simulate going into, hostile environment like we're about to do. So the leadership and the older guys got to lead the way, and we got to show composure and focus, and obviously play hard. That goes without saying. But there can be a lot more distractions when you're on the road. So in terms of when you're at the game. Now the good thing is when you're traveling together, there's less distractions in terms of all the outside stuff. You're kind of on the bus, and you head up on the plane. You're at the hotel together. There's not all family members, just different things in the area that may be a distraction. So that part's good, but I think those are the areas that we'll focus on.
When a team, any of the teams that you've been an assistant on or the head coach with, any team that in like maybe the first or second road game where you're coming back home and going, wow, this team's really changed. Good things happen.
Yeah, you can learn a lot from being on the road. Absolutely. Yeah.
Game in particular.
Not offhand, just here as we talk about it now. But I know what you're talking about. I'm aware of what you're saying. You can really mature and grow as a team when you're on the road, and go get a conference win on the road. It can mean a lot. So I don't really have an example offhand, but certainly I agree with what you're saying.
Right in front of him, Jacob Bench, the Lantern.
Yeah, hey Ryan, just going back to, you mentioned the distractions and the NIL and all things like that. We've crossed the Power 5, a couple of different programs have parted ways with their head coach already this early into the season. Just from your standpoint as a head coach, how difficult is it to keep up with all the extra things going on in season aside from just winning the game on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, but you know that, what comes with it. Doesn't make it easier, but that's why you have to hire great people that you can rely on, and you do all the work in the off season, to get to these moments here. But to say it's easy, that's not true. It's a challenge, but that's what we signed up for, and that's the way we want it.
Yeah, you mentioned hiring great people, leaning on others. Just who from Ohio State kind of helps out with that kind of stuff? Who do you lean on? What sort of advice do you seek?
Yeah, I mean, everyone. It just depends on where you're talking. When you talk about the team and you talk about, the strength and conditioning area, Mick Marotti's a huge, person that I go to all the time. In the recruiting area, certainly it's Mark. When it comes to operations, it's Quinn Temple and Brian Botolini. When it comes to the obviously the football stuff, it's the entire staff, the coordinators. Starts with those guys. Just day-to-day stuff. Keenan Bailey is a huge help for me. And there's just a lot of people here that you have to lean on. Everybody has their certain area that they got to be really good at, and if they don't, they kind of stick out. Kayla Olson's got to be the best nutritionist in the country. I mean, just the work she puts in for these guys and how she helps these guys on a day-to-day basis and the hours she puts in, it's unbelievable. And so we have our player development with Tony, Candace, and CJ. There's so many people around here that have to be on their game all the time, and if they're not, then something falls apart, and we can't have that. And I think everyone embraces that, and we talk about what that means, especially in the off season, and everyone's got to hold up their end of the bargain.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1, The Fan.
Right. Cam Brown's had to go through these recovery processes several times. I'm sure he was hoping he was going to be done with that this year. How has he handled this one, this latest setback? What's been the frustration or the mindset for him as he tries to get back out there?
Yeah, he's been itching to get back out there. He's been stressing to get back out there. I mean, I've felt an urgency about him for the last week that he's dying to get back on the field. So he's gonna we're gonna obviously make sure that he was where he needs to be, and gonna trust the doctors and all the medical people. But I mean, he's trying really hard to get back on the field, and I don't think anybody's more frustrated than he is. So hopefully this is a great week of work and we can get him back on the field this week.
Outside of he was playing well early on. We've seen Denzel struggle a little bit, and you've had the injuries with Jordan. Like, what has it been like to manage that whole unit? I know it hasn't worked the way that you or Tim probably or Jim imagined for this first month plus. Yeah,
well, we haven't really had that whole unit at full strength, and you think about not having Jackson and a few different guys. We haven't been at full strength, but when you look at most teams across the country, most of them aren't anyways. So that's part of the game, and so you have to adapt, and that's where some of the young guys got to step up. And to the young guys' credit in that room, J.K. and Jair had to step up, and so that's good. That's building some depth moving forward. But like you said, we can get Cam back this week, and hopefully Jordan in a couple weeks, and Denzel, coming off of that hand. I think he's got a game under his belt. So hopefully, he'll take the next step this week. But that's part of it. We were missing a couple guys like Cam and Lathan for a game. And so some different guys have had to step up, and so that part has been good. Some guys we've played some depth here, but ideally, we'd love everybody healthy.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just one more follow-up on the punt return. I know he muffed that one, but he's had a couple this year where he's had to basically catch it over his shoulder. Has there been conversation about maybe just moving him back so it's not even this year?
The tough thing about moving him back is on that field, because it's not grass, when it bounces and rolls, it rolls forever. So it can cost you 30, 40 yards. So trying to find that sweet spot in there is difficult. And the funny thing in the stadium is if you looked up at the flags, it was blowing south, I believe. And down in the field, it was going the other way. And then all of a sudden, it would turn on the field. So it swirls down there. So sometimes to try to get an idea of where that wind is taking the ball or holding the ball up is a little bit of a challenge. And we try to do the best we can out there. But there's a little bit of a feel to it. And, he obviously that one got us, but he's also done a good job of making sure he catches those because, if you go too far back and it takes that big hop and rolls 30 yards, that's 3 first downs. So we try to find that spot in there, and sometimes we do better than others.
Just with Marvin, he kind of got out to a hot start his first couple of games here, and then has he maybe missed Jackson the most of the receivers just because it seems like he's the one getting double teamed and having the extra guys on him over the top now?
I don't know if he's getting double teamed. I think he's doing great. I think when he's had his opportunities, made plays. I think there was a couple holding calls on him the other night. And maybe if those don't happen, there's a few more catches and things like that. And just the way it's played out this year, we haven't had as many plays. And a couple of these past couple of games, when you look at the numbers, you say, oh, they're a little down. But they haven't really played in the fourth quarter, or really even at the end of the third quarter. So that's only a game and a half. A half and then maybe like another 8 to 10 minutes. So that's a lot of football that some of the guys are missing. So no, I see him playing at a high level right now. He works as hard as anybody, and certainly will be good to get Jackson back. There's no question. But no, we're happy with his play.
Just to clarify real quick, you say Cam Brown could play this week. You think
Yes.
possibly he's back. With Jackson, you characterized him as sort of day-to-day last week. Does he fall into the same kind of Jordan Hancock category for a game like this when you've got the bye week coming up?
No, we're hoping to get him back this weekend. But again, it's just so hard to tell. We can come in today and say, well, he had a little bit of a setback, or no, he's really doing good and he's trending to play on Saturday. So when I say day-to-day, that's kind of how it is. And with the style of injury that he has, it can kind of go that way. It can linger or it can get better quick. So we're hoping that it's the latter of the two.
You mentioned a couple times today, and you were talking about last week, about taking what a defense gives you, being more willing to just run the ball, maybe in the past when you weren't so much. But you've also got a Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback. You've got first-round NFL receivers. So how are you finding, I guess, that balance just as a play caller? Because don't you want to still be the one dictating things offensively and pushing that action? And how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, we just every drive we're trying to score touchdowns, and whatever it takes on that drive, we'll do. Every drive's a little bit different, and so again, if they're going to sit in a too high look, and we're probably going to run the ball. If they're taking a safety out of the sky and putting them down in the box, that opens up some one-on-ones on the outside, and it's not as simple and as easy as that. But philosophically, that's what we're talking about. So, we'll just try to find that balance. And the other thing that happened after looking back on the film was we had a short field a few times too. So some of those drives, they only had to go about 50 yards to score. So when you look at the numbers at the end of the stat sheet, it looked a little light. And but I think that was just unique to the game.
Are you seeing or feeling a shift as far as just how defenses in general are approaching you, or things you're seeing across college football? The defenses are maybe trying to take that away more and playing back more?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that the defenses have really done a great job this year. I don't know what the numbers are across the country, but just at first glance, it seems like the numbers seem to be down a little bit. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I feel like the scores and stuff seem to be down a little bit. But maybe that's just maybe that's not accurate. But I just feel like defenses are doing a good job across the country.
Got time for a few more. Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, looking back on Denzel's return against Rutgers on Saturday, what did you make of it? What in general for the season that he's had? He's had some maybe more ups and downs than he had last year. What do you think's kind of like contributed to that?
I think he, in terms of his movement and working through that hand, I give him a lot of credit for having that procedure done and getting back on the field so quickly. Goes to show you how tough he is, and he's been right there for a lot of these plays. He just hasn't quite finished them, and so that's an area that he's got to work on. But the good news is he's right there, and so we believe in it, and Tim's going to drill the heck out of it this week, and but his footwork and the way he's moving is all really good, and his cover ability is really still strong. He just got to finish at the point of attack, and I know he understands that, and he's going to work on that this week.
He's such a confident guy, and last year to have a big freshman year to come here and contribute right away, and he was great in coverage against a lot of the best receivers faced in the Big Ten. What's this year been like for him personally, just kind of dealing with some of that?
You'd have to ask him. I don't know, but we certainly believe in him.
Right next door, Tim May podcast, and On 3.
Yeah, Letterman Row, whatever. Hey, Ryan, you look around the country. Paul Christie's got canned on Sunday. Guys, how does that heighten just your awareness of win now, baby? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
I know you don't need any more burden on you than whatever,
No.
but it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It is, but that's. I don't think it's anything more or less. I mean, I feel that every day when I wake up. It's just we got to win them all. So that's just, and that's not always easy to live that way, but it's just the way it is, and so we've embraced that, and that's how it goes. But it is a tough profession.
I'm not trying to get you to brag on your offense, but I will ask this. I mean, Rutgers was bound to determine y'all weren't going to run the ball Saturday, and then they played the two houses, and y'all kept picking at that lock, and you opened the lock. And I mean, do you just feel like you're working right now with just a full complement for when it comes to offense of finding answers? And I don't know, what is that feeling like, I guess?
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I don't think we're anywhere near there. I do think we have had some balance, and we've done some good things. Don't get me wrong, but No, I don't. There's still a lot of issues, and the whole key is to identify the issues and get them fixed. Even though maybe against a certain team you can get away with some things. So, as the film continues to grow, as we get into these conference games, we get into some of these matchup games, it's going to get harder and harder. So, we got to go out there and have a great week of practice. We got to get some things fixed. We got to keep growing in the passing game, the running game, the play action, the drop back, the power run game, the spread run game. There's just so many things that we need to improve on. So, no, I don't think we're there right now, but we have had some good bright spots though for sure.
And one other quickie, Donovan Jackson, when you watch him on video now, what just stands out about the way he is playing?
He's very talented, but he's also very intelligent. He's tough. Just in terms of his ability to bend and the power that he has. I mean, he kind of has a lot of those skills, and he has a lot of tools there. But I think what probably makes him special is just his mental makeup.
Bill Rubino, the Columbus Dispatch.
This kind of builds on that. You guys have not been challenged other than Notre Dame. I mean, almost every other team has had a close call. I mean, how happy are you with just how the season has gone so far?
Hard to tell, just because every week is a week in it's like a work in progress. We're trying to figure out every week what we need to improve on because we know that we're down this path and we have to continue to build to, reach our goals. So, each week you try to identify the things you've done well and enhance them. You try to identify the things you got to improve on. Sometimes that's easier to do than others. Sometimes you got to really scratch at it a little bit. And that's not always easy to do when you win the way we've won the last couple of weeks. But you got to be honest, and we all have to be accountable and critical and make sure that we're getting better in those areas because, it's important to continue to get better. I don't know how else to say it,
And I assume you're quite pleased with Jim Knowles and the defense. What has stood out to you about how different this is? And maybe you probably figure first-year coordinator, there are going to be some bumps in the road.
Right.
How is that going?
Well, I think that they're playing with great confidence. And to me, that's the most important thing is that they're playing with pad level. They're playing fast. They're playing with confidence. The scheme is great. I think they believe in the scheme, there's good answers. But at the same time, it's the energy, it's the pad level, it's the fundamentals. Just look the way Tommy's playing. He's just playing a lot faster. The way Steele is playing, he's playing faster. The line's playing with a little bit more aggressiveness. So I think that's probably the number one thing. Again, still got a lot to improve on, but I like the way that they're playing and their energy.
Right behind him, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Yeah, Ryan, just to clarify, the way Tim asked that question about people getting fired, did you think Tim was putting you on the hot seat there?
Yeah, I did.
No, that wasn't the
Not
intention.
the intention. You said you wake up thinking about that. Like what? Like I have to be at my best every day. We can't lose a game. How do you really manifest that idea of doing your job?
No, everything you just said is yes. That's exactly the way I wake up every day. Now, there's nothing you can do about that other than try to focus and be great right now. And you got to wake up running every day, or someone's going to get you. So that's just the way it is. And I think our team understands that. I think that so far we've had that approach. Now, can we sustain it? That's the challenge.
You said the Wednesdays when you're in the offensive meeting room and you're coming up with red zone and short yardage and all
Yeah.
that. I think you used the word stressful. Isn't it fun too? Isn't it ball coaching? Like what's there's stress in there and trying to be perfect, but also what's it like when all the offensive guys are in there trying to make a plan? Don't you love that?
The best part is when you execute and you put it on the field and it works in a game because you just think about all the work that's been done and you can enjoy it after the game. That's the best feeling. Yeah, during it, no, it's not always that fun because is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What's the best angle? What's going to happen? Are they going to change the look? Is this guy going to win in this matchup? There's just so many variables to come into play, and everybody has to do their part. And then you have to have the right chemistry in there where sometimes you can say too much, sometimes you can say too little. You got to make decisions. You got to move on because the clock's ticking, and guys will be in here in meetings here at 2:30, and we got to go. So it's a race against time to come up with a really good plan that schematically gives you an advantage, but also allows your players to play fast. And that's what we strive for. And having enough, but not having too much.
how have you evolved in your offensive thinking in your time at Ohio State, first as a coordinator and now as a head coach, being in those rooms, being in the college game, and I know you were before, have you changed how you think about offense?
Yeah. I think it's just being in those games and knowing this is what we're going to need, and just looking at it and saying, we need like 2 more runs here in this situation, or we need 1 more play action pass here, or we got too much. Like, guys, we can't execute any of this stuff, and just trying to find that right balance. I think that's probably just over the years between Kevin and I, we've worked hard to strike that balance. Not that it's always perfect, but that's probably what we've learned the most.
And that's one real quick, just like even taking off your coaching hat real quick. Jackson Smith-Njigba is one of the best players in college football. It just stinks that he's barely been able to play this year.
Yeah.
Are you just curious? I think everybody wants to see this guy play football.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, there's a silver lining, but yeah, nobody wants to get on the field more than Jackson, and we all would love to see him on the field as well.
And final questions over here to the right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
A little bit what Doug touched on, you spoke of the burden. Do you feel like because I'm a young guy, I've been through the grind, I'll get to January and then I'll take a breath? Or do you dump the burden somewhere, or do you just carry it?
I don't even know. I don't really think about it like that. I try to do the best I can when we get away from it, on a Thursday night, to try to do something, to think about something else. But usually what happens is we end up as a family watching football on TV on a Thursday night. So it's hard to get away from, where my son comes home from his game. But it's just kind of a way of life, and we love it. We embrace it, and I think of 5 home games in a row with over 100,000 people in the stadium, just unbelievable crowd, and just seeing all the people at the Skull Session, walking up to the game, post game, just seeing the joy in their face, after a win, and that's something we take a lot of pride in.
But mental health is your cause.
Yeah, you have to find a balance, just like we all do. It's just obviously mine's a little bit different, but everybody has their own challenges, and mine's not harder than anybody else. It's just different, and I think we all have to find that balance.